If you haven't, please get those in soon. Where did everybody go? Everyone not make the transition over here? Get those forms in. I need to get those ASAP. I've already started buying tickets. I can add to that list, but we do need to start planning for transportation, housing, get all the rooms figured out, all that good stuff. So get that stuff into me. Some of you have told me that you have friends that want to go. If they want to go, I still got to have a form for them, all right? So they're welcome to come with us, but I got to know soon. Talk to them, get that information to me, we'll get it all figured out, but I will need that information here pretty soon, so please get it to me. So that's Winterfest. Any questions about Winterfest? It's coming up about less than a month now, yes. There's we do the late session. There's sessions. Come on, man. There's sessions each night that we'll go to with speakers, entertainment, different things, worship, and then we'll have time as a youth group at our cabin. So some of that you just got to wait and see. Is it on? What we got next, Matt? Honduras mission trip meeting this Sunday. If you're going this trip, you got to get this meeting. All right, this is a mandatory meeting because we have lots to cover. A lot of you are out of town doing our interest meeting. This one is mandatory. Bring your $100 deposit. That reserves your spot on this trip. It costs $100 to reserve these tickets, and so that's where that money's going. And so I need you here because there's a lot we have to talk about. So Honduras meeting. Hey guys, no one can hear when you're talking. Okay? All right. Look at me like I wasn't talking. So we need you here if you plan on going on that trip. Okay, so be there for that. It's Honduras mission trip. We have changed the date, the timeline. I'm sorry, Matt. We will meet this Sunday after classes right here. So we're planning to meet around 11:45, 12ish. And so if you need time to get here, let me know. But we're going to try to meet here at 12 for the Honduras meeting. Okay, right here in this room this Sunday at 12. All right. Any questions about that meeting? Cool. Ice skating coming up at the end of this month. We're going to meet at 5:30, go eat out at Bellevue, and then go ice skating at the Ford Ice Center in Bellevue. Guides are welcome to come as well and come skate with us. You're welcome to invite your friends, students. Should be a good time. Go ahead and be talking to them about that. Some of you told me about you're going to bring some friends to that, so it should be a lot of fun. Not sure where we're eating yet. We're looking at that, but somewhere in the Bellevue area near the skiing rink there. We're going to skate about an hour and a half, be back around 9:30 is the plan, okay? So that's the plan. That's Saturday night on the 25th, I think. That's all our announcements so far. If you want, you can follow along our reading plan on the YouVersion app. We're going through a series called The Chase, and you can read along with that. Hopefully our guides have been diving into that some on their own journey. And so we're going to try to push that within our small groups next series. But we're excited to challenge ourselves into reading more and diving into God's Word. Before we go into our words, I want us to refocus because sometimes it takes a second to just sit back and separate ourselves from what's going on in the week and what's going on at school. And so take a deep breath. And something we've done in the past is to simply take a moment of silence. And sometimes that feels like a lot. Sometimes for some of you that's really hard. But I think there's a lot of benefits to that. And you guys know at summer camp that we do a prayer walk, and one of our first stations is a station of silence. And some of you have even talked about that, the power in that. And so I think it's good for even on a weekly basis, maybe not 10 minutes, but to have a little silence and to be alone with God. So before we go into worship, We're simply going to have 30 seconds of silence. And if you want to pray in that time, that's up to you. If you just want to be alone with God. But I do hope that you will use that time wisely and not talk with your neighbor, but actually focus in on what we're going to try to accomplish tonight and what we're going to be talking about. And just kind of separate yourself from worried about homework, worried about tests, worried about school, and whatever else is going on in your life. And simply kind of refocus in on what we're doing tonight. Okay.
Fights till I found me tonight. Love, love, your good, good Father.
right, raise your hand if you remember your first steps. Anyone here remember their first steps? I didn't think so. We don't remember our first steps, but chances are someone in your life remembers your first steps. Whether that's your parents, your grandparents, or whoever's watching you. Somebody was most likely with you and remembers your first steps. And depending on your age, it was probably posted on Facebook, or it was shared with friends. It was texted to someone. I don't even think my parents had a video camera, so I don't know if mine's on film anywhere. But yours may be. And as long as you don't remember it, you know that someone was proud of you. You know that when you had those first steps, that someone was excited and someone celebrated your first steps as a human being. Because when you're younger, first steps are a big deal, right? When you're younger, first steps are huge. Like anything that you do as a first is massive. And so your parents celebrate, they clap, they cheer. Our child is walking, and it's a huge accomplishment, okay? Obviously, this is like really relevant to me right now. Corbin hasn't taken his first steps, but everything's a first for him. And like when you're a parent, like everything you do now, everything me and Joey do with Corbin is a first. Like we go and we see a dog. Hey, that's the first time Corbin's ever seen a dog. Like stuff like you don't think about it. It's mind-blowing. Everything is a first. But when he does something that's a first, we celebrate, okay? And though we haven't had those first steps, there have been some first moments. Just a few months ago, I started taking care of Corbin on Mondays, and I got to experience one of the first without Shelby. She was very jealous. So here is one of Corbin's first. This is his first rollover, okay? This is a big deal. You can see it in my voice, brother. Get it, big guy.
Whoa!
There it is.
Good job, Corbin.
Y'all should be clapping right. He just rolled over. Clap for my son. Thank you. All right. Now, some of you are like, well, President, that's really not that cool. That is huge, okay? That's a big deal. That's a big deal. First steps are a big deal. Rolling over for a little man, it's huge, all right? I was so excited. But the reason some of you are like, yeah, that's really cool, is because as you get older, we don't celebrate the small steps, right? If Luke was to get on the ground right now and roll over, I'm not going to clap for Luke. I'm sorry, Luke. I love you, but I'm not going to clap for you. Because as you get older, obviously, these things aren't as big of a deal. As you get older, it takes bigger things for you to be celebrated, right? It takes moments for you to make the travel team, to get an A in a difficult class, to land the big role in the play, to win a competition, to get accepted into college of your dreams. Like, it takes those big moments for you to really be celebrated. As you get older, the big things seem to be the only things we celebrate. And as sad as that is, it's probably good, right? Because it'd be kind of weird if we always celebrate the little things. Like if you're in there brushing your teeth and your parents in there videotaping, man, look at Carlos brushing his teeth before school. Isn't this awesome? Like that would just be awkward. That would be really weird. If your dad goes in the bathroom and says, hey, man, you're being the potty. That's great. Like things like that's just weird when you get older. Like we understand that. We don't want to celebrate those little things forever, but I do think there are certain scenarios where it's good to celebrate small steps. It's good to celebrate moments. Even as we get older, it's good to celebrate the small steps that we take, especially when it comes to our faith. Small steps should still be celebrated. But as we get older, sometimes they aren't. And it's same is true in our faith walk. When we first put our trust in Jesus and we become baptized, like people celebrate moments of baptisms. And if you remember the moment you were baptized, you probably remember walking out and you remember all these people hugging you and all these people telling how proud of you they were because that was a big moment in your faith. Or maybe some of you that participate in youth-led worship, after you got done and you all did a fantastic job, everyone's dapping you up and telling you what an awesome job you did, right? Like you're getting the love. And like it's this big moment in your faith where you were celebrated for something in your faith. But what happened to those moments where it's early in the morning and you decide to wake up a little early so you can read the Bible on your own? Like no one's there to give you the high five or tell you, hey, good job. Well, those moments where there's this thing trying to bring you back to a sin you struggled, but you decide to do something else. What about those moments when we're doing great and there's no one there to celebrate? So there's small steps sometimes that we don't get to be celebrated, that we don't even think about or even be acknowledged for. But I think that brings up a good question. What do you think God celebrates? What are the moments in our faith you think God celebrates? Is it the moment where you decide to go on a mission trip or do something big in your faith? Is it the moment when you sell all your stuff and you give it to the poor? Is the moments where you're helping someone else in their journey and you share your faith to inspire them. I think God celebrates those moments. But a lot of us hear moments like that and we're saying, man, those sounds like really big steps of faith. Those sounds like things that I haven't done or I'm too scared to do. And so the question for us is, what about in our own steps of faith? Because they can seem really small. Some of you are at that right now where the steps that you have taken in your faith, they seem very small and you don't know if it's even worth celebrating. You don't even know if it's really even a step towards faith or if it's even something that God's acknowledging at all. But what I want to dive into tonight is that we serve a God that celebrates small steps. That we serve a God that sees everything that you're doing as an encouragement along the way, even if it's the smallest of small steps, that every step toward Jesus is a good step and a step worth celebrating. And we're going to see that tonight. We're going to be looking at Luke's account. We know there's 4 accounts of the gospel. But Luke talks, it's in a couple accounts, but Luke is going to be speaking about Matthew the tax collector, also known as Levi. Some of you know this story. Maybe you've heard it a few times. But we're going to talk about it again tonight. We're going to be in Luke chapter 5, verse 27. So we're going to start out. At this moment, Jesus had just got done performing some miracles. He runs into Levi, or Matthew the tax collector, and this is how Luke records it. After this, Jesus went out and saw a tax collector by the name of Levi sitting at his tax booth and said, "Follow me." Jesus said to him, and Levi got up and left everything and followed him. Now there's a lot to unpack in this short 2 verses here. First, we understand that Levi was a what? He was a tax collector. And to understand tax collectors at this time, like it's different than like the IRS that you think of. And, well, I see the IRS as thieves sometimes myself. But we see like tax collectors were like legal thieves, okay? To explain this, what happened is the Roman government would come to these towns that are like provinces of the Roman government, and they would choose someone from this village to be the tax collector. And they would give this tax collector an amount of money they had to collect. Let's just say it's 10%. Okay, hey, you have to collect 10% of all the fees here. Okay, and if college job to collect 10%, you know how he makes his money? He's going to collect probably more than 11. Let's say he collects 15%. Now, what happens to that extra 5% that college is collecting? It's going in his pocket, right? And so he was what we call, he was a thief. Like he was collecting, skimming on the top. And the way he could do this was the Roman government said he could. And so people get mad and say, hey man, he's taking my money. This is my hard-earned money. And people didn't like him. Why? Because he's taking their money. And it wasn't even illegal. They can't get mad about it because you know what? If I go to start a fight with college, you know who's behind them? The Roman government, okay? We can't mess with it. And so he was what you would have thought of as a legal thief. The worst type of criminals, the legal ones. Tax collectors people money, collected taxes, but were known for charging people more than the taxes they actually owed. That's how they made their money. And so as you can imagine, people didn't want to hang out with the tax collectors. That's not the people that you wanted to be around. But we see something crazy in Jesus. He sees Levi, he encounters Levi, and he says, hey Levi, follow me. Now, I know people don't just go around saying, hey, follow me, but this is what Jesus was saying in this moment. Jesus was extending an invitation. Jesus was basically saying, hey, Levi, you're a guy that I want to be associated with. I'm not worried about all the bad things you've done or what people think about you. I just want to hang out with you. So why don't you just take a step and follow me? Now what I love about what Jesus said to him is what I love so much about it is what he doesn't say. Because what a lot of us picture that Jesus would say to Levi is more along these lines is, hey, get all this religious stuff figured out, Levi, and then you can follow me. Hey, Levi, what you're doing, it's wrong, but if you could just stop it, then you can come follow me. Hey, Levi, if you'll just give everyone's money back and do all the things you're supposed to, be a good Christian, then you can follow me. But he doesn't say that. He doesn't say, hey, get your life right first. Hey, learn the book of the law first. Hey, why don't you go and ask for forgiveness from these people first? He doesn't say any of that. He says, hey, come and follow me. Come and follow me. He simply asked Levi to follow him right then, right there, just as he was. In response, what did Levi do? Look at the end of the verse there. It says, Levi got up, left everything, and followed him. Levi took a step. One step. He simply took a step away from the table and towards Jesus. And in doing so, he demonstrated a powerful idea that I want us to learn tonight. And that's this. That chasing Jesus, as we're talking about this series, starts with a step. Last week we talked about how chasing Jesus isn't about chasing performance, but simply chasing the person of Jesus. We looked at Martha and Mary and how often we focus on our performance and things that we do in order to obtain Christ, but instead Jesus said, hey, won't you just focus on me? And we see kind of a similar story here that if you want to chase Jesus, it starts with a step towards him. Even though it's a small step, even though it's something that maybe you wouldn't celebrate, one step towards Jesus, it was huge, right? It was a step towards Jesus. It was something that was celebrated. We'll see that in a second. But I want you to see is this wasn't, even though it was a small step, it wasn't an easy one. Some of us understand that taking small steps can be difficult too. And we see that for Levi, right? He didn't know what his life would look like in months and years ahead. He didn't know what he might have to give up if he stepped towards Jesus. He didn't know that he'd still be making, people would still be talking about him thousands of years later, right? He didn't know any of that. But he didn't have to take the first step. He simply trusted Jesus enough to take one step towards him. And so the question for us is that saying, do we trust Jesus enough to take one small step towards him? And what I love about this is you follow along the story, you find a party going on later on. It's at Levi's house, and there's other tax collectors and what they call sinners at this party. And guess who's right in the middle of the party celebrating with him? Jesus is. He celebrates as we serve a God that celebrates small steps. I imagine at this point that Levi didn't have it all figured out. He didn't know what it meant to be a follower of Jesus. He may have not known all the laws and all the rules. He had no clue what he was in for, but he trusted Jesus enough to take one step towards him because every small step towards Jesus counts. Now, where does this stand with you? Because I imagine all of us are at different parts of our relationship with God. I don't know where you're at. Some of you may feel really far away. Some of you may feel really close. And some of you may be unsure even where you're at. But here's what I know. When you just take a step towards Jesus, you are becoming closer to him every small step you take. In order to move in God's direction, sometimes that all it takes is one small step to lead to another and another and another. And some of you may be one small step away to that breakthrough you've been waiting on. One small step away to the relationship that you've been looking forward to, that you've been hearing about, that you've been wondering about, that you maybe even don't understand this moment. One small step away. So what's the step for you? What's the small step you need to take in your relationship? It could look different for all of us. It could be a small step of reading just one verse of the Bible every day. It could be a small step of being kind to someone who isn't kind to you. It could be a small step of inviting someone you trust into a struggle that you may be having. It could be a small step of being a little nicer to your mom or to your siblings. It could be a small step of showing up at church one more time a month than maybe you usually do. It could be a small step of going to an event with a youth group. It could be a small step of inviting someone to the youth group. It could be a small step for speaking up in your small group. It could be a small step of singing the words to the song that maybe you haven't done before. It could be a small step of volunteering, helping someone need. It could be a small step of developing a habit of gratitude. We could go on, but there's so many different ways that we can take one step in God's direction. And all of us can kind of think of a step that we can take, right? The point is, small steps are a big deal, and there's something that God celebrates. But here's another question. Will it be easy? It wasn't for Levi, was it? You see, like Levi, your step towards Jesus may also be a step away from something else. Your step towards Jesus may mean you have to step away from a habit. Maybe you have to step away from a relationship. You have to step away from someone who's a bad influence. You step away from your comfort zone. Sometimes stepping towards Jesus costs us something. You know, when Levi stepped towards Jesus, there was probably a lot of money on that table that he left there. It's probably something that was a little risk, something that cost him something. What do we realize when it comes to discipleship is sometimes our step towards Jesus is going to cost us something, and we recognize that even small steps can cost us something. What is that for you? Even small steps towards God are a step in the right direction. And what's so cool about this is as you take one step, you gain confidence. You gain confidence to take another step. And it'll give you confidence in Jesus to take another one and another one and another one. And that's how this works with them. That's what being a follower of God looks like. The steps you take toward Jesus now are just as important as those first steps. But unlike your first steps, there's steps you're going to remember. Steps that are going to be influential in your relationship with Him. Chasing Jesus starts with a step.
It starts with one step. It may not be someone that sees it, celebrates it. Hopefully there is, because it's worth celebrating. But you can believe that God in heaven is celebrating that small step you took in His direction. So, question is simple. I want you to think about this as you're heading to small groups tonight. What's one small step that you can take towards Jesus? What does that look like for you? Let's pray together and we'll head off to small groups. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for our time together tonight as we can look at the story of Matthew and the tax collector. God, we just pray that through this example we understand that the small steps are a big deal. So often we downplay any act that we have and we understand that there's so many out there doing big steps and we don't know if we ever will measure up. God, I just pray that our students recognize the importance of these small steps, and all of us are encouraged to take one step in the right direction tonight. And although our steps may be different, God, you know what you are pushing us towards. And God, I just pray that we kind of reach into our hearts and see where you're pushing us. And God, you're always pushing us somewhere. Lord, let us to hear your call. Let us to hear where you're leading us. And we thank you so much for your provision of lives. Thank you for your example of your Son that we have that we can lean on. God, so much we know that you are chasing us, and we just pray that through this series that we can understand what this chase is all about and to be a better follower of you each and every day. Thanks so much for our guides who are going to lead our small groups. Be with them and impart wisdom with them, and let your words be your words. And we're just breathe some awesome wisdom in our students tonight for those groups. We pray for those groups. We pray for Encounter. We thank you so much for these students and what they mean to your kingdom. Your sons, and we pray. Amen. All right, you guys.